So in other words, all three countries would take their constitutions and burn them.
That would be a result at some point, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't be immediate. I mean, you could never get away with that immediately.
That's one thing about the global people have learned, is that they have to incrementally do this. That, you know, if somebody came out and announced, starting next year, we're going to have a North American Union, 90% of Americans would never accept it. But the fact that, well, maybe not 90, a large majority would not. But the fact that this kind of incremental change that some people may not notice, might not hear about. You can't rely on our media to broadcast this stuff. You know, there's a handful that have been on stuff like this, like Lou Dobbs and a few other people. But I mean, you know, that's what they're relying on, is our ignorance.
Yeah, and our lack of will to maintain what we've got.
Well, here's the thing about freedom. If you never had it, you can never lose it.
That's right.
That's right.
So.
And that's really why we're still not in any kind of a union, is because the United States really, it is a special country, and it's the only one that was founded on this self-determination of, I can do it, and I can do it better than having the government tell me how to do it. And I can believe what I want when it comes to religion, when it comes to being able to speak what I want, even when it's unpopular, when it comes to being able to protect my own life, when it comes to being able to build something. I know how to do it better than the government can tell me how to do it. And that's different here than it's ever been throughout history anywhere else.
Yeah, we didn't become a great country by accident.
No.
Right. And you know, if you consider that there is some grand design, there are people who want to move the world toward more unity and lack of any sovereignty. All you have to look at is the creeping nationalism that occurs in the United States, maybe even more than a creep. It's probably a trot toward nationalism. Just trampling over the sovereignty of the states, which is what this was set up to be. So it's easier to get a national body to move toward a larger body, a regional body, a continental body. And once you get that, it's another just a minor step toward a world government.
Yeah, that's where we're heading. I'll tell you, what really makes this scary, I mean, if you really want to get, of what this could be, okay? Think of, if anybody ever heard out there, I suggest you Google the NAFTA superhighway and what that could and possibly look at. The Trans-Texas Corridor, and there's all these things that have been sort of proposed. They're sort of out there about using superhighways that Canada, the United States, and Mexico could all use, that American law, even in the United States, would have no enforcement. And what's scary about it for those of us here in Minnesota is I-29, I-35, and I-94 were all roads that have been targeted by this movement to be. So you want to drive up to Hinckley for the weekend? Okay, you are on international territory, even in the United States, hypothetically.
Right through the heartland of the country.
Yeah, and you probably can't see it. I can hold it up and out. But this is from NASCO's website, and it's got arrows pointing all the way from Lázaro Cárdenas in Mexico, all the way up through Winnipeg to the bays.
Now, Jason, who's NASCO now? You got to explain who that is.
Well, NASCO is the North American Super Corridor Coalition.
Super
Corridor. Yeah, it's right in the name. It's not conspiratorial. It's right in the name.
Could that be run at all by the Mexican cartels and that are looking to get an easy access for their drug trade throughout the continent?
It's not run by them, but it obviously opens that up, because if you go, there's a movement, there's a website out there that it says the United States of Kansas City. And that's where they want to make the first customs, the entry point for a lot of the traffic coming up the super corridor from Mexico, is to stop at Kansas City. Well, there's a lot of real estate in between there.
That'd be the first checkpoint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you go through Texas, you go through
Arkansas.
Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Arkansas, to get up to Kansas.
Yep. In
That's
fact,
the first checkpoint.
yeah, the website is www.kcadc.com. So you can check it out
Who'd
yourself.
be in charge of this highway between Kansas City down to Mexico? An international
The
governing
whole
body?
thing. It's really our government. There are
A government that I assume we don't vote people onto, right?
well.
Yeah, it would have to be an international force of some sort.
There are documents that were got by Freedom of Information Act from a Minnesota attorney, Nathan Hansen. And there's many emails that went back and forth between Lockheed Martin and our Department of Transportation and the Departments of Transportation of other states, where we were looking to put RFID sensors all up and down 35. This was
Okay.
specifically because of Minnesota, or in Minnesota.
Radio frequency.
Identification sensors.
Devices,
Yep.
yeah, okay.
And so what this would do initially is track cargo going back and forth up I-35. And tracking the cargo would let them know where shipments were at any point in time. And these RFID sensors then would send the information out from the sensor to what's called a center of excellence that would be in Virginia, the state of Virginia.
Center of
Oh,
Excellence?
talk about Orwellian speak.
Yeah.
The
And-
Center for, okay.
And the big thing is, I mean, China was going to be creating this technology.
Well, of course,
yeah.
we don't
Well-
make anything here anymore.
Well, it's not just that, but they have an interest in what's called Savvy Holdings or Savvy Networks, which is part of Lockheed Martin, but the Chinese have some ownership in that. And they were going to be the Savvy Networks placing the sensors up and down 35, and then also being in charge of this center of excellence. And it will collect the data and store it, and it's only for cargo initially, but you can be sure that all they have to do is go to some of the automakers and say, hey, here's a financial incentive. Will you put this in your vehicle? I mean,
and tell
Or
us,
have- or
tell
just
us
have-
about it 20 years
or
later.
just
Yeah.
pass a regulation that, gee, all cars, all vehicles need to have this device. It's like one of the regulations, they were trying to put backup cameras in all of the new cars that came out. So that when you back up, you could see behind you. Oh, obviously a safety measure.
And I'll tell you,
But-
not only do they have plans for stuff like this, but they've also coined a single currency for Canada, the United States, and Mexico. They've coined things like somebody like Al Gore, who's advocated a North American carbon tax
Yes.
on us. Of course,
Yes, our
Mr.
former
Gore,
vice president,
yeah,
yep.
Mr. Gore's not smart enough to know India and China are the world's biggest polluters. And I notice he doesn't propose a tax on them. See, the globalists already own those countries, so we don't have to worry about that. But Al Gore has called for a global Marshall Plan, which is basically a blueprint for socialism. He's called for populations to be stabilized, which means capped off and eliminated. Of course, Mr. Gore's smart enough not to actually say that. But this Amero, this one continent currency is something that really is frightening to me, considering where the dollar is going. And this independent task force on North America has officially recommended that we go to one currency between the three nations.